At the Northern Colorado Liberty Group's September meeting, guest speaker Luke Korkowski took questions from the crowd. He's a Republican running for the U.S. Senate seat in Colorado.
Any question?
Yes, sir.
Which politician is your role model?
Pastor President.
Anytime.
You know, every person is a mixed bag. Every person is a mixed bag. So it's difficult. One person sent me an email recently that said, "Are you a Ron Paul Republican?" Actually, the question was, one question, "Are you a Ron Paul Republican?" Yes. And we differ. We differ in some respects. And so I elaborated on that. But I had to give the short answer, which is yes. Are you a Thomas Jefferson Republican? Democrat Republican? Yes. And we differ in several respects. So as far as role models, I would prefer to think of an amalgam of the good parts. If you've ever read that book, The Princess Bride, it's supposedly based on an older book, and he just calls it the good parts version of the older book that's much longer. That's kind of how I think of politicians. I want to take the good parts from Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, some parts of Lincoln, not a whole lot of them politically, but some personal parts of Lincoln. Certainly a lot of the policy of Ron Paul, and some of his personal characteristics. I hope I'm a better speaker than Ron Paul. I don't know that I am, but I hope so.
So does that make you perfect?
What's that?
If you're taking the good of all these guys, does that make you perfect?
That's for you to judge.
So how do you differ from them? In what ways do you differ from Jefferson or Ron?
How do I differ from Jefferson? I would like, at the end of my life, to not be in such large personal debt. I would have managed my affairs differently than him. I would like to have had more integrity throughout my life. There's the possibility of some of his personal affairs, possibly. It's not totally proven, but it's strongly suggested by some evidence.
But then that did not affect his own political life. I mean, a person's personal life is not necessarily the same as their political life.
No, it's not. It's not. That's why you want to. Who serves as my role model, right? Which politicians serve as my role model? Well, what do we mean by role model? Just political? If it's just political, most of what Jefferson did, yeah, I like that. Not all of it, though. You know, we had the Louisiana Purchase, which I'm not sure he was authorized to do. He wasn't sure that he was authorized to do. George Washington, solid guy, liked his character. I don't think that I would construct a cabinet the same way he did with Adams and Hamilton. Or I'm sorry, it was with Jefferson and Hamilton. Sorry. John Adams, I liked a lot of what he did personally, and then he did some awful things. Alien Sedition Acts. You know, it was terrible. But some of what he did was good. The way he acted at the inaugural of Jefferson. You know, well, maybe that wasn't the best thing, to just get up and leave and not welcome in the new guy and facilitate the transfer of power. Ron Paul, I like him a lot. I think what I would change from Ron Paul, if as much as I consciously can, is the effectiveness of his speaking style. He speaks to those who agree with him, and that's only going to be a certain minority who will appeal, who will get into that message. We need to take that message and not change the message, not change the content of it, but speak in the language of other people. There's this political consultant guy who's written a book, and the theme of the book is, it's not what you say, it's what people hear. And I'm experiencing that on my campaign trail, believe me. I say one thing and people will say, "Oh, you're a racist," or and I say another thing, oh, you're a tax raiser. It's very strange being in this game. And what I want to focus on is saying things in a way such that people hear what I mean. That means I have to speak in their language. And that's where I'd like to improve on what Ron Paul has done. He has, I mean, well, you guys know.
Give me an example then of how you would speak to a Democrat regarding healthcare.
What, if you think of Democrats and what key words trigger emotional reactions, one is justice, social justice, right? Compassion. It is more compassionate to have a free market. I made that argument actually in an article that I wrote on my website, that is more compassionate to have a free market in healthcare. Justice. How is it just that the Federal Reserve System can create money out of thin air and give it to rich people? They don't give it to poor people, which would be unjust too, but still, it's a little bit better, isn't it? If you created money out of thin air and you didn't give it to rich people, but you gave it to a bunch of poor people? I mean, it's still not just, but I would think a Democrat would be able to key into the injustice there. Maybe
I have
not.
a problem with that. So someone has to do a better job of helping them see that. To us, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Well, Ron got 100 of them to see that.
What's that?
Ron got 100 of them to see that.
In what respect?
There's 100 Democrats supporting Ron's audit the Fed bill.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they fully see the injustice. In his latest book, In the Fed, I'm in the middle of it, he said, generally on the Hill, there's an indifference to monetary policy. Not just an opposition to wanting to abolish the Fed or anything, but there's an indifference, as if people just think, it doesn't matter. Well, how do we make it matter? Speak in their language of justice. How is this just? How is this compassionate that we steal money from the poor and several rich and middle income? How is it just that we steal money from them, not by taking their money, not by, if they have $10, we don't take $1 through the inflation, through the Fed system. Instead, they have $10, we make it worth less. It used to buy 2 sandwiches, now it buys 1 sandwich. That's unjust, and we need to speak in that sort of language, I think, to broaden the appeal of the message, because the message is solid and sound. That's what I mean.
In Theory TV is a live interactive video show. I broadcast on boldvoices.tv, channel 6, as well as intheory.tv. In theory, we live in a rational world with liberty and justice for all. Let's explore the possibilities.